She suffocated for the third time this week. Full body paralysis. Tree trunks wrapped around her chest, stomach, and thighs, quietly rocking back and forth. The uneven floor grasped her body, holding her tightly while rolling as one. Two hungry marbles rubbing against each other. A loose connection formed out a struggle. A weeping siren filled the air, an outburst from her aching stomach, who mourned starvation and swallowed itself whole. Absent breath relieved the toe of stomach chains, loosening them, melting them into a puddle. Her cries gave way to a new strength, her hold with the earthen floor. Then all at once the trees fell apart, chewed into wood chips and strangled leaves. The rocking and heaving and weeping left her. All at once she was alone again. No trees, no floor to hug her to sleep. No lullaby, no sand to send her away. Bliss removed, full again, she opened her eyes sadly. She missed her childish nights when she couldn't sleep, when her mother told her all the reasons why they were who they were, and where they are, and why they're there. She missed when her mother first sat with her on the forest floor, her first steps over the roots of the sundry. Her mother told her the weight of her feet, the way they could march and stomp and swear, the way they could walk the length of the world, crowing her voice with whatever she wished. Was that a fantasy her mother sold her? Was that a cruel trick to anchor her to the sundry that had all disappeared, with the snarling saws and axes, whacking down the roots of her home? But she couldn't blame her mother for all of it, not when her father sold her lies from a different corner of the world. The current between her parents' voices washed and wiped, an outburst of migraines, hard, immovable shells of calcite. Her father cut the wood her mother cried over. Her father felled the trees that held her first footsteps. Her mother tied her arms to the tree that her father said he had to cut. Powerful elbows hooked together, her mother and all the village women stood against the ground of men. We have to cut the trees. How else will we live? If you cut the trees, how can we be alive? The bridge grew longer each day. The mud embankment succumbed to erosion. Each day, the village headman sent laborers to rebuild the embankments with thicker soil. She remembered the day a scrawny white woman fell through the embankment and sank up to her hip in maroon mud. She called out for help in a voice where help was something to be expected and counted on. She was helped, of course, because we didn't want the police to come again. But then she started saying words, and we all laughed. Mahika made it to the trailhead. She looked over her shoulder. Shaped with the bend of the current, and below the drunk gaze of spindly mangroves, the path pointed towards her home. If she craned her head far enough, she could make out the treetops of private land. The resorts and vacation homes had always been there, and sometimes people from there would come to Lahiripur to collect laborers. But the tourists usually stayed far away. When they saw Pitharpura, even from afar, their vacation was tainted with the reconciliation that their leisure came at a cost. But then they would drink out of coconuts and feel soothed, because they had lots of money. She pondered the power of a little stretch of land. Resort ground versus Lahiripur. What difference did a few strides make? For the village, the tourists, that difference was unquestionable. It seemed the resort had cut off the vegetation inside from spreading outside the cage. The fence kept everything inside. A ring of dirt bordered the resort, scored of all life except a few lonely shrubs. Frequently, the development, welfare, and conservation boards would drop by to tell Pitharpura its new barriers, its new shape, presenting a new container for Pitharpura to be frozen inside. Always other people became hungry for more. Chuck that container in the garbage and dump Pitharpura onto a plate. Slices lapped off for resorts, chunks for the national park, refitting the remainder inside a new container. Wash, rinse, repeat. Water is greedy. The rivers and waterbeds of the Sundarbans threaten the islands with submersion. The embankments are supposed to protect us from erosion, but the water keeps rising, and the anger from the last storm keeps a tidy residence on every shore. Then, just as we grow the embankment, the tide falls and fishermen are stranded on dry ground. Water is generous. It moves on its own, but lets us follow and collect our treasures. Early morning reveals chipped shells, and afternoon catches the crabs. Holding this place in both hands is an impossible task. The sudden rush of monsoon, or the quiet morning of gentle sun. All of it cannot be held because there is nothing to fit together. Mahika quilted a jacket full of memory and wrapped it around her shoulders. It was embroidered with the delicate seconds where everything seemed to mesh together, and she could look around and see everything and know it. Know it as if it always stayed with her. Know it regardless of idiosyncratic tides. From the bridge she could see the rivers surrounding the salt marshes. It resembles a drawn-out cobweb, one that's been slashed and puckered with holes. The scent radiating from the salt reminded her of another fickle memory. Tracing its outline, she couldn't place it before or after her first steps, during or preceding the tumultuous spell between her parents. She consoled herself with the quilt, searching for a cozy hemline, a clear gap to fit inside. Women have always cared for these forests. In Rajasthan, Amrita Devi led 300 people, men and women, to protect the Kashiri trees. They wrapped their bodies in sacred threads. If they fell the trees, then 300 people would fell with them. 300 Kashiri and 300 people, laying on the forest floor. This is what happens when the trees fell. We fall with them. She crossed. Mahika is not in the forest. Mahika is not in the grove. The noise is leaving. Quick, rapid shudders, clicking at a tempo intangible to time. I closed my eyes at some point. Vertigo, thorns, hailing my feet. I opened my eyes. Again, somewhere new. It's the ash and pine trees. I know these trees because the Conservation Board plants them after loggers have swept through the grove. I know these trees because they shouldn't be in the forest, but now that they are, I make an effort to know them. I am standing on flat ground. If I placed a perfectly filed stone on this ground, the two halves would fit face to face. No uneven wobbling, no slanting soil. This ground has been leveled against the curve of the earth. The ash and pine go on and on. How they stand feels artificial. Each trunk is lonely. Someone planted these trees for efficient collection. Habitating its own little square of earth, the trees stand upright, and their arms are like knives. The sky is soft and squishy. Limbs stretch into the air, prickling the surface to form a stiff shape, just open enough to be seen, but not too wide as to touch other trees, other limbs, other things. I start crying because I don't want to be here. I am stuck on this cracked mound with leaves and twigs that mean nothing to me. I am just another bundle of water and life to plant into the soil in a grid formation. I am just another body filling up space, and as I cry and cry, I believe I am the next toothpick anchored to blue and brown, toiling in the shape of this grid formation. I stay here for a while. This place that Mahika is standing inside of, with the ash and cedar surroundings, can be peeled away like a sticker on a new refrigerator. Digging a fingernail into the thick cake of terrain, pinching the skin to your thumb, peel off this landscape. Peel it off with your hands. Pull it away until you are holding a flat gray rectangle that is 1 inch thick with 1,000 toothpicks nailed to its front, all standing in a grid formation. Again, somewhere new.